I don't want to leave you in suspense, so I'm going to tell you up front. I want to buy NVIDIA at 691 and 25 cents to be exact. And I like to be exact. But then the question comes, how did you come up with that number, Kerry? Well, I want to show you. What I do is spend my time researching stocks and looking at their past history and their future projections and try to come up with numbers. The number that I can buy NVIDIA at and the number that I can sell NVIDIA at in 2026 and 2027. So that's what I spend my time doing, research rather than watching YouTube videos. So let me take you first of all to my trading views chart and explain to you how I came up with that number, $691.25 for my purchase price of NVIDIA, because I don't own it right now. Okay, here is my chart, and what I'm showing you again is trading views. If you want access to trading views, you'll find a discount in the description where you can sign up, and I get paid a little commission. Okay, what I did was I went on this chart and I went back to March of 2020, and I traced the movement of NVIDIA until today. And then I used what is called a Fibonacci retracement. If you go up here and click on that, it gives you the ability to open Fibonacci retracement. And what it does is you put a line here on its low when you want to start, and its low was at the trough of the pandemic, and then you put it at its high. And history says that a stock that gets a good run up will normally get between a 50 and a 78.6% retracement. And as you can see from this movement to this movement, it did in fact retrace and come to here. And as you can say, it ended somewhere around a 70% retracement. Then it turned around on January of 2023 and had another run up. And the retracement then came and said it would come down to 211. Well, it didn't, okay? So I then come and I move it across, and I get, as we're moving from roughly July of 23 through January of 24, we get about 1, 2, 3 more peaks and then valleys. And then we come to the one that we're in right now, which was started in January of 2024 and hit its high in March of 2024, has started to correct and is now showing its retracement. Again, the Fibonacci says that it will go to 723 or possibly as low as 577. It's right now at 762, so it's very close to the first level. This is its 50-day moving average. It broke the 50-day, so that gives us an indication it's probably going to go lower. This is the 200-day, and as you can see, the 200-day almost perfectly matches up with the 78.6 retracement level. So I've gathered that data. Now what do I do with it? I bring it over here to a spreadsheet and I analyze it. So here is the first movement that started with the pandemic, and as you can see, it had an increase from $50 to $316, or 532%. This is the Fibonacci 50%. This is the Fibonacci 78.6%. It actually corrected to 114, so it had a 64%. Then, as you can see, the others did not have the drastic movements that they did from the pandemic, and we have corrections ranging from 3, 13, 16, and 8. And now we're involved in the current correction, which, as I said, started in January, has brought us to date. It was an 84% run up, and you can see how that equates to some of the others, and it has now started its correction. What I then did was said, what's the average of these? And the average turns out to be a 21% correction. So I said, okay, what is the 21% on the 875, and it's $691.25. And that's how I came up with that number. Now, how do I substantiate that I even want to get into NVIDIA? Well, I do research. I look at the other history of NVIDIA, and try to come to some conclusions. The first thing I've learned that the way you determine what a future stock price is going to be is find out how successful they are at making money. Okay? So the first thing I track is their earnings per share, and I go back to 2009 and come all the way up to their projections in 2006. And then as you can see, they started with a negative earnings per share. They became profitable in 2011 and moved forward as we go. Here we see an actual jump of 137%, 89%, and here you can see NVIDIA is starting to wake up, or should I say the world is starting to wake up to NVIDIA. Had a dip in the pandemic, but then came on strong. Now, these are the real important numbers that you need to be aware of. NVIDIA basically told us they were going to increase their earnings from $3.34 to $12.96. That's a 288% increase in earnings. Then they came and the price of the stock, which is right here, reflected that. We saw the price of the stock go up 126% in 2024, and this is a reflection of the increase in their earnings per share. Now, what's important to me is what are they telling me their earnings per share are going to be in 2025? They're telling me it's going to be $24.88, or a 92% increase from last year. And then in 2026, a 22% increase. So what I do now is I take an average. And what I want to find out, for every 37% that the earnings per share increase over history, we have gotten a 64% increase in the price of the stock. Now I can look and say, okay, if we're going to get a 92% increase in 2025, what does that equate to the price that we have currently at $762, multiplied times a multiple of 172, and that's what this number and this number is. And that tells me that if history holds true, that NVIDIA will be worth a year from now, in 2026, at the start of 2026, $1,969. So does that make it attractive to me to buy it at $691 today after it goes through this retracement? Yes, it really does. Then I see that it's going to have a 22% increase in earnings in 2026, and that's going to give me another 38%. So at the end of 2020, at the start of 2027, NVIDIA's price will be $2,717.82. If I'm wrong by 20%, I really don't care. It's giving me a direction to buy. Now, how can I reinforce that commitment to such outlandish increases in price? I do more research. I look at what is the revenues. What are the revenues increase? These are in billions. 4.6 went up 7%, 38%. As you can see, NVIDIA is raising their net revenues until we get to the pandemic and they go down. This, in 2021, was when Jensen Huang learned about artificial intelligence. And this is when their revenues started shooting up because he started spreading the word. And you can see that their revenues increased dramatically as we went forward. What drove those revenues? This number. R&D, research and development. When did research and development start to grow in NVIDIA? Right there. That's when Jensen Huang learned about artificial intelligence and how his GPU chip was going to be the prominent chip, 98% in data centers, in order to process the data that was going to be needed to meet the needs of AI. That's when it took off. And there you can see it. Now, then I ask myself, all right, what's the other metric I need to be aware of? And that's gross profits. Did gross profits increase as revenues increased? And the number I want you to look at is their gross margins here. And as you can see, back in 16, they were 56. Look what they are now, 63, 65, 57, and last year, 73%. This is a company that has more demand than they have supply. So what do you do when you have more demand than you have supply? You raise your prices and your gross margins go up. As your gross margins go up, your earnings per share goes up. As your earnings per share goes up, your price goes up. So this makes me feel confident that I will have a $2,000 stock at the end of 2025, and I will have a $2,700 stock at the end of 2026. Okay, so now what I need to do is convey this message to my tribe members, and I do that on my cheat sheet. This is my cheat sheet. This is all the stocks that I follow in the Bus 12 and Bus 13 portfolio. The Bus 12 are those people who offer the hardware and the semiconductors and the building out of what we're going to need in the future. I have blotted out everything but NVIDIA. Why is that? I spend a lot of time doing this, and I spend a lot of money doing this, and I'm not giving it away. I'll give away my information on NVIDIA, but what I'm showing here is that if I can buy it at $691.25. There it is now, and it's currently selling at $762. And if I then determine the future price based on my projection, based on Wall Street's projection, based on the technical analysis, and then the fair value based on free cash flow, I come up with a price that is not exactly the price here, but an average of these numbers. If I hit my price right and you buy the stock at $762, you're going to make 50% on it in the next year. If in fact I hit my buy price of $691, I'll make 11% more than you. Okay? So that's how I share my research with my tribe. And I do it for 37 stocks, okay? And I do this same kind of analysis so that I can justify the price that the stock is going to be at the end of 2026 and at the end of 2025 and then at the end of 2026. And with those kind of rises, I don't have to be exact. And if I can support it with data and then use that data to make projections into the future, I'm going to do just fine. Okay? Now, are all of these stocks buys? No. No, some of them don't have this kind of information. And do I do this kind of analysis on every one of the stocks I look at? You bet I do. There they are. Every one of them. I do this in-depth analysis to determine at what price do I want to buy the stock and at what price do I want to sell it. I'm Kerry Grinkmeyer. I'm a retired financial advisor. I have learned that if I can analyze these stocks, if I can use past history from the data that is now available to me. When I was a financial advisor, this data was not available because we didn't have the internet. And we didn't have the sources where I could go and create formulas and put a ticker symbol right here and all these numbers fill in and give me a projection. And then those numbers transfer to my cheat sheet and I share it with my people. If you want to be a part of this tribe, if you want to have access to the information up until 2 years ago was only available to Goldman Sachs, the big hedge funds, the big banks who had 46,300 employees and managed $2 trillion. If you want access to that kind of information and you don't want to pay 2% of your assets under management and 20% of any profits you make, then get on the bus. How many times do I have to say that? It's going to cost you $60 a month to get on the bus and get access to this. If you can't make $6,000 a month over the next 3 years, then don't spend your money with me. Take your money and pay your 2 and 20 with a hedge fund. All right, I'm Kerry Grinkmeyer, a retired financial advisor. I'm having the time of my life because I figured this out. And I recognize that there is a very small group of people who understand and know what I'm doing and can do it as well. And the problem they have is they have 46,300 employees they have to pay, and they have $2 trillion under management. So it takes time to take a position. I can take a position like that because I don't have $2 trillion. And I suspect you don't either. So let's take advantage of our advantage. And that is we now have access to the same data they have. We just need to know where to go to get it and then how to analyze it and produce it and interpret it. I just showed you the future based on the past of NVIDIA. If you want access to any other stock, because eventually, as I said, you will come to my website, you will enter a ticker there, and that'll all fill in. And you'll know what your stock is actually worth. I did a video the other day. You'll see it. It has me and Jim Cramer on it. And Jim was touting Procter & Gamble. Go look at that video. Find out what Procter & Gamble is worth and what it's going to be worth in the future. Find out how can a company whose revenues are growing less than inflation can stay in business. Think about that. You own a business. You got employees to pay. You got supplies to buy. And your revenues are growing less than inflation. How do you stay in business? I'm Kerry Grinkmeyer. I'm a retired financial advisor. I paint Picasso paintings. I do photographs. And I create videos. I wish I'd learned at a younger age that I'm not a salesman. I'm a creator. And I just created your ticket to wealth. Get on the bus.